Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Rebecca if you haven't been here before, and today we are going to be discussing Hulu's Only Murders in the Building Season 5, Episode 9. This episode is called Lester, as in the robot, and we are going to be discussing clues, theories, and everything that's gone along with this season so far. I have made a video for every single episode of this season and videos for all the other seasons. So if you are not all caught up, make sure to pause, go back, watch, catch up. You can watch my old videos first if you want, and then come back and watch this, because this is going to be a full spoiler discussion about my theories and the clues that I have noticed this season thus far. So before we get into this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good YouTube stuff. I'm trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we are well on our way there. But every subscribe, like, comment, and share helps. I really appreciate you guys for watching these videos and commenting and interacting. It means so much to me. I love the little community that we have here, and I love seeing your guys' thoughts and theories. So thank you so much. Don't forget to hit all the buttons. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. So we start off with Lester and Miller first receiving the robot Lester. And Lester says just because the board bought him doesn't mean that he has to use the robot. So he leaves the robot in sleep mode, sitting in the basement of the Arconia, just not using it. But clearly it's on, because we see like the footage from Robot Lester's like one eye, I guess. So Robot Lester is narrating and saying that humans always try to make him out to be the bad guy, but it's not his fault. He's actually really useful if you use him for the right reasons. And we see this video footage of Lester yelling for Randall and then saying he's been looking the other way for too long. So immediately we start to have this insinuation that like Lester and Randall were in some sort of conflict. So then we jump forward in time and we see Randall with the bloody crank in his hand, standing in like the locker room part of the basement of the Arconia, and he's like, shh, and that's kind of the beginning before the credits of this episode. So definitely a lot of suspicion on Randall. One thing I did want to point out that I thought might be kind of interesting. This light is going to be tricky today. One thing I did want to point out that I thought might be like kind of interesting is that we had this discussion, I think it was in season 3, where there was a lot of discussion of like triplets and trios and threes. And a lot of people thought that Ben Glenroy possibly had a twin or was a triplet himself. And I think it's interesting that the voice of the Lester the robot is Paul Rudd. And so I think it's interesting that this is the third role that Paul has played in this series. He played Ben Glenroy, he played Glenn Stubbins, and he's now playing Lester the robot. So maybe that was a sneaky hint and a way that they got that like 3 trio triplet situation in there. Maybe not so much a direct solution to that, but just kind of a nod to it in the show. Like maybe they knew he was going to be in the show in 3 separate parts in 3 separate ways. But I thought that that was interesting and kind of funny. Anyway, we start off the show. The trio walks into the lobby and immediately accuse Randall of being in the courtyard the night that Lester died. And Randall's like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then he turns around and runs away from the trio. And they're all like, well, this has never happened before. So Randall is gone. We see Lester the robot flashing that 19 days is left until everyone has to move out of the building. And the trio have been hunting for Randall ever since he ran away. They've even checked with his mother, and she says that he's gone and she hasn't seen him. We also see that Jay and Mabel are texting and talking about potentially hanging out and or going to the Maldives together, you know, because that's, I guess, what you get when you date a billionaire. So clearly some days have gone by. Lester the robot says there are 8 days until move out today, and he is picking up the dry cleaning. The Cacciamilio brothers have to carry him up the stairs, which is kind of funny. And Nona and the sons are working in the dry cleaners, and the trio are also there asking if they've seen Randall, if they know where he is, and if he's been there to like pick up the money or do any of the work that Lester used to do. And basically the answer is no. We then move on, and it's now one day before move out. So time has clearly been passing, and the trio don't have anything. Lester the robot comes upstairs to drop off a burger for Oliver, and we see that the trio are sitting in his apartment. They're upset and dejected because they haven't found any clues. They have to move out, and they just really don't know what they're going to do with themselves. Oliver is apparently going to go to New Zealand to be with Loretta, and Mabel is thinking that maybe she'll go stay with her friend in the Maldives. And Charles is low-key looking at a nursing home to live in, even though he doesn't think it's a nursing home. It actually is a nursing home. But something that's interesting is while Lester, the robot, is like trying to leave Oliver's after making his drop-off, he gets stuck, and we see a play called Dance of Death. So Dance of Death is actually a play written by August Strindberg in the 1900s. And what's interesting about this play is it's about a husband and a wife who hate each other. They are like vicious towards each other, and they are coming up on their 25th anniversary. We learned that the husband is an artillery captain and his wife is a former actress, and they kind of like live on an isolated island, and their children don't live with them, but each parent has turned their children against the other parent. So it's kind of like this setup that could be indicative of the way that Nikki and Sophia were living and like the way that their children existed in their lives. So the third character that comes in is Kurt, and he is Alice's cousin. She is the main woman, the wife. And he visits and learns that the husband's past work caused him to like lose custody of his own children in his divorce. So he does not like the husband. Kurt and Alice join forces to plot against her husband. They kind of enter into like a weird relationship. And that's kind of how the play plays out. It says that in the final moment, what has survived amid the emotional and psychological wreckage is unexpectedly the marriage. And then the playwright ends where it started. So they actually don't leave the marriage. They stay together, like Alice and her husband. And so nothing really happens. But I think that it's very interesting that this is the play that we saw, Dance of Death, and that it has to do with a husband and a wife who are turning their children against each other. So put a pin in it, leave it for later. So we come back from that. We're still in Oliver's apartment, and it's a complete mess. Like, he hasn't really packed. Like, all of his stuff is all over the floor, and the trio are talking about where they're gonna go, what they're gonna do, and it kind of seems like Mabel has given up, and she's like, I'm gonna go home and get drunk, and you guys do whatever. So she goes down to the lobby because she's heading back to her place, and who is there but Teddy Demas? He is back. He's drinking wine in the lobby, and he runs into her, and they're like, oh my gosh, hey, what are you doing here? She's kind of like, remember that time that you kidnapped me? And he's like, yeah, actually my van's on its way. I'm just getting ready to move this stuff out, but do you want a drink of non-toilet wine? Do you want to drink some non-toilet wine together? And she's like, yes, but you don't have to call it that anymore. Most wine is non-toilet wine. And he's like, right, the clink changed me. So we learned that he had a really tough time there, even though he was in this like special like luxury prison, and he learned Italian while he was away. Lester the robot comes into the lobby and is yelling at everyone for having their stuff everywhere, even though they're all trying to move out. So you've got Vince Fish on the exercise bike, and he's doing one last ride before the person from Facebook Marketplace comes to pick it up. And Howard comes in and is like, don't speak to my robot that way. Let's pull up the bylaws and I'll prove that these are actual rules that you have to follow. And so Howard comes up to Lester, shows him his eye, and he is unable to log in to access the bylaws. He does not have that ability anymore. And apparently Lester the robot is now owned by Camilla and her team, and so he does not have access to it anymore, which he's very upset about. And he's like, we've broken up, like, oh my gosh, this is such a big deal. So that's that. So Howard joins Teddy and Mabel to drink some wine and eat some food because he's so distraught about the fact that he and Lester the robot no longer have this relationship together. And Detective D also shows up. She's like, I wanted to come in to like reminisce with you about like your last day here. Like, I'm really sorry that you're losing the building. But she's also annoyed because Mabel has been like, I'm quitting, I'm not doing this anymore. And Dee is like, how can you say that? Like, it's just disappointing to hear. We go to Charles's apartment and he is perfectly packed up and, you know, basically all ready to go the way that Charles would be because he's so organized. So Oliver comes in and he's like, I'm gonna have this party tonight. It's going to be the Last Supper themed because, you know, it's our last night in the Arconia. And Charles is like, actually, I'm gonna go hang out with my friend Jim Geronimo and we're gonna go to a baseball game. And Oliver is like, why would you choose tonight to be the night when you're gonna like make new friends? Like, you're so unsentimental and willing to just throw anything away, and it really kind of like hurts their friendship. And so Oliver leaves. He's like, whatever, I'll go tell Mabel instead. Like, you don't have to come. And he walks out, and then we hear, you know, Lester's in Charles's apartment and his alarm starts going off. He's like, intruder alert in the gaming parlor. And we go down to the gaming parlor and there is Dee and Mabel and they're having a drink. And Detective D is like, listen, like, you like are not a quitter. That's not who you are. That's not who we are. You can't just go away and like go and spend this time on a yacht in the Maldives. You're not going to be happy. And because that's just not the kind of people we are. We are problem solvers. We aren't the kind of people who are going to let that kind of stuff go. So Dee's like, okay, that's it. I'm leaving for work. That's all I had to say to you. And as they're getting up, they see a half flip-flop footprint coming out of the wall. And Mabel is like, hold on. That shoe print is in the wall. Like, what is going on? So they find another secret room together. There is blood splatter on the floor. There is white paint. And we realize that this is how they dragged Nikki out and into the dry cleaners because it leads to the back of the dry cleaners. They've learned now about this secret room. They also realize that Randall has used a fake background to claim that he is in Cuba and no longer in the country, when in reality he is still in the Arconia. Randall has not left at all. So now Mabel's head is spinning. Her thoughts are spinning. She's like, you know what? Like, we're still in this. We can figure this out. So we go upstairs. We see that everyone is in the lobby drinking. Mabel comes upstairs to tell Charles and Oliver that Randall is still in the building. And she's like, get the murder board. Let's go. We're going to figure this out. And Charles is like, I actually threw away the murder board because I thought that we didn't need it anymore. And Oliver is like, you are so unsentimental. Like, this is just what we had our fight about. Like, why would you throw the murder board away? And Charles was like, we said we were done. So then we hear a delivery worker come in. He's like, delivery for 6C. And someone is like, that's been empty for ages. Like, no one's lived in 6C for a while now. And the trio realize, who is in there but Randall? So they rush upstairs. They go up to see Randall. He runs away from them a second time. Once again, they do not chase him. And he runs into who else but Theo Demas, who I love and I wish was more involved in the show because I'm a Theo stan. Next season, Theo better be in there all the time. I love that man. So Theo's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And Mabel signs, don't worry, he's the murderer. And Theo signs, of course he is. I know what building I'm in. Like, just like funny that this is what, the sixth time that there's been a murder in the building. Like, oh my gosh. So they have Randall where they want him. They're questioning him and he's like, I didn't do anything. Lester told me not to say anything, so I kept it a secret. And they're like, what happened? Like, you have to tell us because you were the only two there and like there's no proof. And Lester the robot reveals that he was there. He has video footage of what actually took place that night because he was in the basement in the locker room on like sleep mode. So we see the video footage that Lester the robot is playing for us on the wall. And Lester, the human, runs in and tells Randall to take the wedding shrimp to Oliver's immediately. He has blood on him. He's holding the crank. And Randall's like, oh my gosh, like, who hurt you? Are you okay? And Lester is like, this is not my blood. I didn't mean to hurt anybody, but I couldn't let that mobster take down this building. So he's like, Randall, don't say anything for your safety. Like, I don't want anyone to know. Just take the shrimp up to Oliver. So this is interesting because obviously, like, Lester planted the finger in the shrimp because he knew that it would get to Oliver and that the trio would solve whatever was going on. So he was like, get it to Oliver. That is how the finger got into the shrimp. Lester did it. And immediately everyone's like, oh, so Lester must have killed Nikki because he was like, I didn't want to hurt anyone. But I have my doubts. Anyway, we continue on, and Randall's like, he did it for you guys because he didn't want there to be any more crime in the building. He didn't want you guys to have to move out. He wanted to save the building. So after seeing this, you know, the lights go off and the trio are like, that's it. Like, we need to figure out who killed Lester because he stayed and protected us until the last minute. Like, that's what his goal was. He always loved this building. So now for him, we need to figure out what happened. So they do end up doing the Last Supper murder party. We've got a little bit of Uma and Vince flirting with each other, kind of having a moment. Charles and Howard also have a moment, and Howard admits that Jonathan actually broke up with him a few weeks ago and that, you know, he's been hurting for a while, and Charles says, you know, we should really look out for each other more. Like, we just assume that everyone is fine, and like that's the wrong assumption to make, and I'm really sorry that we've let you like go through this alone. So they hug. Howard's crying. They go back upstairs, and Jay arrives at Oliver's door to basically take Mabel to the Maldives, and she's like, no. If you really want to be a good person, you'll tell us what you know. And he's kind of like, well, why don't we just go to the Maldives instead? Like, forget this, leave this murder business to somebody else. And Mabel's like, you know what? All these people in this apartment are losing their home tonight. And if you had won that bid for the casino, other people would be losing their homes too. So if you want to make the world a better place, you should stop making it worse. And she closes the door on him, and that's kind of the end of that for this episode. I don't really like the idea of Jay and Mabel being together. I just don't see it. But it would be nice for him to kind of come clean and admit what he knows, and maybe he'll be a part of the reason why they catch the murderer in the last episode. So Charles comes into Oliver's apartment and he apologizes, and they have a moment, and he takes one of Oliver's doorknobs and is like, will you sign this? And Oliver's like, oh, I guess. So he's showing that he's trying to be just like more loving and caring and like keep those memories with him instead of trying to just shove them away. So party's on. Murder board is being reassembled, and Mabel's like, did we ever find out what this was? And it's a scuff mark on the floor, the one that was in front of Charles's refrigerator. And Howard gets up and he's like, I know what that is. That is from an electric chair, just like the one that my mom used to have before she passed away. And we realize that the person who has an electric chair is Nona, Sophia Catchamilio's mother, I think. And we see a flashback, and it's Nona and her grandsons, and they are stealing the finger from Charles's apartment. So Howard solved it. And we flash forward, and the trio, Teddy Demas, Lester the robot, are all standing in the dry cleaner. And because Teddy speaks Italian, he says, you took our finger. And all the boys go, whoa, whoa. And Nona is sitting there, and she's like, crap. So that is the end of this episode, and they have been found out. The boys and Nona, it is official that they are the ones who stole the finger from the trio. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things that we know for certain from this season thus far. So we know that the person who had the finger was going to be the winner of being able to create the first casino in New York City. We know that Sophia was cheating on Nikki with someone that he was shocked by. We also know that Nona and the boys are the ones who stole the finger officially. We know that Lester and Nikki both died that same night, the night before Oliver's wedding, but that Nikki's body was set up to look like a mob killing and that it didn't show up until at least 4 days later. We know that the police were paid off by someone to say that the murder was some sort of mob family turf war. We know that someone owned a company related to Tommy the Tongue and that they had a lot of money in it and that they took it all out of the bank the day that Sophia went to see Rainey. So those are kind of some of the things we're certain of, and although I don't know how all of them fit together, I have a theory on what is going on this season. And obviously this is the second to last episode, so we will know for certain next episode and we will discuss thoughts and feelings. Okay, so for the theories portion of the video, these are my thoughts on what my final play as to what I think happened for this season. So I think that the finger is Mayor Tillman's, and that the night that the billionaires were playing for the finger, the fifth person was Mayor Tillman. Somehow one of the games they were playing resulted in him losing a finger, there was blood, and that's what Lester got on him. He knew that Camilla's plans were to turn the Arconia into the casino, and in order to save it, he stole the finger and put it in the shrimp and sent it up to Oliver. So I don't think that Lester actually killed anyone, because I don't think he would do that. I don't think that Lester killed Nikki. I think they assumed that Lester killed Nikki because of the blood, and I think that he didn't mean to hurt anyone, but I think he stole the finger because he was like, if this is what they're playing for, then I'm gonna take it and hide it where no one can find it. I think that the person who did kill Nikki was one of his sons. And a huge reason I think that is because of the play that we talked about today called Dance of Death. And like we talked about earlier, that play is about a wife and their husband who hate each other. Their marriage is a disaster, and specifically they pit their children against each other, trying to convince them to hate each other. So that is why I think that one of Nikki's sons is actually the person who killed Nikki. I think that this has to do with kind of the bird talk that we had earlier in the season, because brown-headed cowbirds, which is what Nikki was known as earlier in the season, are known for laying their eggs in other birds' nests, which kind of signifies that a bird is being raised by a different kind of bird, but is not knowledgeable about that. So I think that we know Sophia was cheating. I think that one of her sons was raised by Nikki, but was not actually his son, and unbeknownst to him, and that information came out. His son found out that he wasn't really Nikki's son. There had been some of Sophia and Nikki trying to turn their sons against each other. And that son was like, this isn't even my father. He lied to me. He's been lying to me my whole life. And so he was the one who actually murdered Nikki because of that. And I think this also relates to Madame Butterfly, which is another play that was mentioned this season, in which a child is taken from its mother and raised by someone completely different. So I think that's interesting. And I think there are two options for who Sophia was cheating with. I think that one is Bash Steed, and I think that's more likely if one of her children is not Nikki's sons, that it would be Bash, but I'm not 100% sure because Bash is older. So is it possible that that son is actually Bash's son, Bash's child? Bash is the kakapo, and so that's a very solitary bird except for when they're mating. And once they mate, they leave the female to raise the chicks. So that kind of makes sense there. Or maybe it was the mayor. But like I said, the mayor's a little bit younger, so I don't know if they would have had time to have full-grown children together, but I guess it's possible. So I really am leaning more towards Bash being the one that Sophia was cheating with. And maybe that's why Bash has Algie, because he found out that he had this son who he wasn't in his life at all. He felt guilty and he was like, you know what? Algie is my son and I'm going to be there to tuck him in every night no matter what, since I have this other kid who I wasn't able to be in their lives. So I think that one of Nikki's sons killed him. I think that they were pit against each other by Sophia maybe, and that he wasn't really Nikki's son and that's why he killed him. And then lastly, or maybe not lastly, I think that Tillman was manipulated into giving the billionaires the casino papers because they had his finger. I think that it implicated him in knowing about this Velvet Room, this illegal casino that he, it would have been bad for the public to know that their mayor was kind of corrupt in this way. We know that he doesn't want to be under the billionaires' thumbs anymore, so maybe this is all a part of, like, he wanted to get his finger back, the billionaires had it, this was going to force him to give them the bid for the casino, and he had the police force on his side, he had the power, he is a powerful man, so he didn't kill Nikki, that was separate, but he went after Lester, who stole the finger, and he murdered Lester because he was like, I want my finger back, I don't want to be under anyone's thumb anymore. And after he killed Lester and he still couldn't find the finger, he tried to get close to the trio in order to find out what they knew, because he knew it was the murder building and he knew they would be investigating a murder in the building. He was like, well, now I have to go on the podcast, I have to get close to him, and that was the whole guise of like why he tried to get close to them in the first place. And then lastly, I think that the boys and Nona stole the finger because they wanted to create the first casino. They knew about the billionaires trying to steal the family business by creating the first like legal casino in New York City. And they were like, we are the mob family that has the casino. We don't want that. If anyone's going to have a legal casino, it's us. And so they stole the finger so that they could have the papers to create the first casino in New York City, the first legal casino, and keep it in the family because their mob family, Sophia's family, had been running it for so long. And even Nikki was like, I can't sell it. So those are my theories for today. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good YouTube stuff. I love you guys so much. I so appreciate you watching these. Make sure to tell me who you think the murderer is down below. This is your last chance. Give me all your best theories, your Moriarty theories. Tell me what you think is going to happen next season. Do you think someone's going to die in the next episode and like start the next season off with another murder the way they normally do? Who do you think will die if there is a death? I love you guys so much. I love making these videos and just like getting to chat with you in the comments about one of our favorite shows. So I will see you guys next week for the last episode of season 5 of Hulu's Only Murders in the Building. And I love you guys so much. I will see you guys then. Bye.